Good morning, everybody. I'm Melissa Nielsen with Waldorf Essentials, and I hope you are having a wonderful Monday morning. Today, we're going to talk about when it's okay to put your foot down. And I sort of was laughing the other day, and I'm saying, when is it okay to call your kids out? Because there is definitely a time for that and an opportunity to do that when they are the right age. And so I thought we would really dive in today to what I feel is appropriate. And so this is sort of like the directions to parenting according to Melissa. But at the same time, before I get too deeply into that, I want you to mark on your calendars right now. Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. we'll be live again, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of giveaways that we have going with our Thinking, Feeling, Willing program. The cart will be closing at the end of November, and we have a bunch of giveaways. We're going to talk a little more deeply about that and sort of like what that means. It doesn't mean anything for people that are already members. It just means that they're going to have continued greatness, but that the cart will close on it until sometime next year. So if you've been somebody who's been on the fence, you've been considering it, and you don't know, gosh, is this something I should do now? You should join us on Wednesday morning. We'll talk about it more deeply, and I'll answer questions about it then and talk about some amazing giveaways we're going to have. I'm really excited about them. We're going to be giving away some fun stuff, some school supplies, some fun things, and some great one-on-one time with me. So join us Wednesday morning, 6 a.m., same time, same place. So if you're catching us on Facebook, we'll be live on Facebook. If you're catching us on Instagram, we'll also be live on Instagram. Okay, so let's dive into this topic. I sort of, I know it might ruffle some feathers, but I'm not a stranger to that. So don't mind ruffling feathers. I think that we live in a culture where we have this idea that we should be meeting the children's needs continuously, which we should be, but also that they sort of are in charge. And on a cultural level, and by cultural, I'm talking mostly about the United States, but I know this is happening in other places as well. When we are doing that, we're not always really meeting their needs. We're just sort of letting them run things. And that's okay for some things. But when it comes to disciplinary issues, tantruming, things that should be over by the time they're 7, 8, and on up, then we have to sort of really step back and go, okay, what's going on here? So the first thing I will say is, if you have a child that is tantruming, that is often a signal for you that you need to connect. So connect to that child and sort of see what's going on. So whenever I want to call one of my kids out, first I have to check in with myself and say, okay, wait a minute. What's going on here? Why is it going to hell in a handbasket? Why are they, why are they frustrated? Why are they not listening? Because that's the first piece I have to ask myself. Why are they not listening? Am I just standing here shouting out commands? Am I checked out and off somewhere else? And I've not been really paying attention, and now all of a sudden they're in my face, but I've been sitting here on my phone or into a book, or insert your action here. So I first check in there. Excuse me. So first I check in there. I want to ask myself, am I present? Am I connectable? Am I are they able to connect to me? If they're really seeking connection, am I am I in a spot where I'm open? Because we can tell as adults when there's another adult that it's like, don't look at me. I don't want you to see me. Our children have that same ability. So they know whether or not we are in a space where we're open and ready to connect. And so, this parenting gig is a hard thing, especially if you're home with them all day long. And I totally get it. That's been what I've been doing for almost 22 years. So I very much understand that piece of getting tired and really wanting to spend some time in your own bubble. And so for that, I would say get up early, send them to bed on time, so capture some time in the evening. But when you're on as a parent, be on and be in a space where you are open for them, that they can feel you're energetically open. So I wanted to cover that base because I do believe that 9 times out of 10, when we want to call a child out, we first have to look at our own behavior, and we first have to look at like sort of where we are and why we are feeling like we need to call this child out. So having that out of the way, let's now dive into, okay, you are present and you have sort of set the boundary. So that's really this issue too, is it's a boundary setting issue. So have you set a proper boundary? Oftentimes in our parenting, and every temperament is different. Every temperament is different. The choleric might have too hard and too fast of a boundary. I have been guilty about that. I've been guilty for going, okay, yep, one chance and then we're done. Guilty. Where the phlegmatic, like dad, has our lovely Eric, sometimes doesn't have a fast enough boundary. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just his temperament. And so we can either be too fast about it or not let things go as long as they should, or let things go for too long. So we have to, and so I should probably back up and say the melancholy mom might also let things go too long because she doesn't want to, she doesn't want to deal with the conflict that comes when you have to ask a child to stop doing something. Or maybe she is more withdrawn, doesn't want to have to step out and be present. The sanguine mom will just forget. I've been there too. That's the other part of my temperament. It's a really good temperament combination to have, choleric sanguine, because I can get mad, but I'm also over it really fast generally. Excuse me. So keep your temperament in mind, sort of when you're sort of tackling these things that come up. But then also know that there is a time where you go, listen, you need to stop that, like now. That's not okay. And being okay to do that. So if you are raising children with attachment parenting, positive parenting, there are times when you might feel like, hey, I really feel like I need to do that. But then this like recording plays in your head. No, have to be sing-song. Have to be just, honey, I don't want you to do that. There is a time for the honey, I don't want you to do that. And there's a time for the dang it, knock it off. And it is okay. It is okay to ask your child to stop. It is okay to demand that your child stop. It is okay to step in, remove them, and walk to another space. It is okay to say, hey, listen, you are 12 years old. We're not doing this anymore. This is behavior that is not becoming a 12-year-old. And in not doing it in a shaming way. You don't want to be shaming. Now somebody might say, that's shaming what you just said, that's shaming. I think that if you are somebody who's screaming at your children all day long, that's shaming. If you are somebody who is even-keeled, no-nonsense mom, who can absolutely hold the space, connect constantly, continuously, and you have taken the time to connect with this child and they're still going, then it is absolutely okay to say, knock it off. We're done here. But you have to mean it, and you have to have the firmness behind it, and you have to have the confidence behind it that they actually will. So a lot of that starts when they're young, right? So that when you have laid that boundary, your parenting non-negotiables, as I like to call them, that everybody should have some non-negotiables with their parenting. And that might be, a simple one would be like the seatbelt in the car. That's a non-negotiable. Like you're going to get in, you're going to put your seatbelt on, and we're going to drive. Why? Because it's not safe to be without it. Parenting non-negotiable. Another one for me is helmet on your head when you're riding a bike or scooter. Non-negotiable. If you put your feet on that scooter, that helmet better be on your head first. Otherwise, guess what? You don't have to ride the scooter. And with regards to the car, guess what? We don't have to go to the park in the car. We just sit here until you put your seatbelt on. So those non-negotiables might seem like they only come up during safety issues. For me, my non-negotiables generally are safety and comfort of others. So if you have a child that is older, and by older I'm meaning older than 7, especially 9, 10 and up, and they are not being aware after you have taught them awareness. So you have to teach awareness first. After you've taught them awareness and they are blatantly not regarding somebody else's comfort and space, that's when you step in. I was thinking about the last time I had to call Sam out, which is not very often. My gosh, that child. He is such an angel. He's such an angel. He's really a good kid. It's very rare. But usually when I have to call him out, it's about his sister, his little sister. And he likes to, because he's such a good boy, but sometimes he'll go pick, 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 pick. Usually has something to do with something else. So I might say, hey, listen, we've already talked about that like 3 times now. We're done with that. Do you need to go spend some time alone, away from your sister? Do you need to step aside? Do you need to, like whatever it is that's going on? I have already taken that time to connect like 3 times before when I asked him to stop. So when I first asked him to stop, I might have said, hey, is everything all right? Like, why are you picking on her? Oh, I'm fine. And then I think, okay, I've said it and we're done and we're going to walk away. And he might still keep at it. Now, I have to tell you, this is an extremely rare occurrence. What'd you say, Daddy? Like maybe twice a month?
Yeah.
Maybe once a month. Soraya, on the other hand, has SPD, sensory processing disorder. She can easily get in a loop. So my job as her mom is to make sure that I catch that loop before it gets started. And sometimes I'm great at it, and sometimes I suck at it. So I have to first ask myself, have I not connected with her enough? Step in there, connect, look at her in the face, see if we can make eye contact. Sometimes kids with special needs don't want to make eye contact. And my oldest son that has autism spectrum disorder, it wasn't the eyes that he needed to make contact with. He had to watch my lips. When he watched my lips, then he could hear me. And even though he wasn't reading my lips, it was physically he had to see it come out of my mouth. I don't know. I don't know what's up with that. But even as an adult, I see him sort of go between my eyes and my lips sometimes. But I will stop myself and go, okay, Soraya, Mommy really needs you to stop what you're doing. Do you see what's going on around you? You're hurting. She'll do the screeching thing sometimes, or she'll start howling like a dog. I'll say, do you see there are other people around you? We need to stop this behavior. It's not okay. We can go outside and you can be loud, but we are in a space right now where being loud is not okay. So when I do that connection piece, because she's got stuff going on, I will at the same time release the pressure points. Here, Daddy, will you take my mug?
Oh, yeah.
I will release the pressure point right here. There's a spot right here. I think I've talked about this before. There's this fatty area right here that is a pressure point. And it's really good for stress relief. And if you touch it, while you're listening to me now, set your phone aside and touch it. And if it's tender, like the one on this side of me is tender right now. If it's tender, it means it needs to be released. So it's only tender for the first second, even half second. Then it sort of releases. And try it on a child that is about to go over you can't do it after they've already gone over the edge. You have to sort of do it as they're teetering on the tipping point. So as I'm sort of correcting, I will grab her hands, and often she'll just hand me her hands because she knows. And what I've noticed with both of my kids, so Harry asked me the other day, or a few weeks ago when I did this for him, he's like, man, I wish you'd known this technique when I was little, because it felt really he could feel himself just calm down and ground. It was almost like you deflate their crazy that's up here and it comes right on down. But you have to get it before they go over the edge. They go over the edge, then they're not going to let you touch their hands. They're definitely not going to let you inflict that millisecond worth of pain that's there, and then it sort of goes away. So when they know, so I can get Soraya to do it on her own. She'll do mine and I'll do hers at the same time. And that becomes a really good place to connect. She knows that I'm there to help her relieve that stress. And she knows that I'm there to help hold that boundary that I've already set in place when I said, stop, we need to stop doing that, whatever it is. And so by me then connecting after I say it the first time, it helps her to know, hey, wait a minute, this is something that Mom is really interested in me. She's interested in what I need to do and sort of the people that are around us. So we're taking that space, that time. Do you have any comments over there?
Just a couple. Jacqueline Hunter Nedrow says, good morning to my most favorite people on this planet. And Leah Ray says, this is a great topic and I needed a pep talk about Being present. Thank you, Melissa.
Yes. So, because they really think that so much of our parenting difficulties comes from like being present. And listen, I get it. I have 5 children, not 2, not 3, I have 5. And it can be incredibly overwhelming when they're all in the same space. I get it. So you have to make sure you take the time to connect with all of them. And you know, when the big kids were little, there were kids that I knew I could just say, hey, I need you to stop that. And kids where I knew I was gonna have to be like, hey, knock that crap off. And it's usually Jacob. It's usually Jacob. Even today, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? When he was here, I can't remember, I told the story when he was here a few weeks ago. All of a sudden he's on my roof. I'm like, it doesn't ever end. He's almost 20 and he was on my roof. And honey, if you're watching, I love you.
Well, he did that the same when Soraya's little
He
boys.
did that. Well, when that was like, I was like, why are you on the roof? And then I get the explanation. Well, she had one of those like things that you do this and it twirls up. And of course her big brother is going to save her toy that went on the roof. Of course he is, because he's her big brother. And she is like so into her big brothers because they are so amazing to her, and her big sister too. Eleanor didn't sit with us at church yesterday, and so I was sort of waiting for her to come in, and she was like, yeah, you can color with me, Mommy, but there's Ellie. She grabs her bag and takes the colored pencils and walks away and goes to sit next to Ellie to do some coloring during church. So it was really funny. So they are all about the big siblings, and we've created that space. We've created that space of peace where they love each other, and that's really important to Eric and I, that they like being around each other. But you know, when you get all of them together, even as adults, I have to go, guys, stop it. I just want to say that when you have to go to that space, you have to not feel guilty, but you do have to look back at yourself. And if you are raising your voice regularly, ask yourself why. Is it because you're not connecting? Is it because you're not present? It is 9 times out of 10 because of that. Most children do not just act out and then continue, even if they have something else going on. So, I would stop. I would like get down on their level, or better yet, pick them up if they're small enough and hold them, because there's something magical that happens when you pick them up, put them on your hip, and you've got them close, and then you can talk to them eye to eye. Now, of course, you can't do that with a 10-year-old. So 10-year-old or 12-year-old, like with Sam, I might like take his hands, not in a mean way, I'm not like that, take his hands and sit down on the couch with him and go, what's going on? And then have the conversation, like, do you need to go spend some time alone? Like, what's going on? And sometimes, because children are continually seeking attention, at certain times, I do believe that many of them, when they're raised properly and you've given them that space to connect, they will hold that space on their own a bit. Not completely until they're adults, but sort of stepping in there and by the act of holding his hands, it has him know that I'm there present with him. So if I was holding a hand and flipping through my phone at the same time, that would not work. Or holding a hand and talking to another child, that would not work. So you want to pick, if you've got several at home, you want to pick the 1 or 2 that you have to say less to, and work on that behavior first. So if they're all sort of crazy and going, and I've been in that situation too, where you walk in and it sort of seems like everybody is Pigpen from Peanuts, and it's all crazy. So you want to connect with the ones that you can call them the quickest. Connect, and then step back, and then deal with everybody else. But always check in first. Check in with yourself first. Always make sure that before you start sort of like calling people out, that you have connected and that you are like holding the space. Because if you're holding the space, the crazy isn't going to happen. At least generally, I would say that, well, yeah, it's not going to happen. If you're holding it and they know you're holding it, crazy is not going to happen. But you've got to be checked in, not checked out. Anything over there?
Oh, I have a few comments. Deanna Katero Hemingway says, I love how in big families you can really see the differences in personality, and I too am on the last two and they feel easier. I think because there are less personalities going on.
Probably. And because we're better at it. We're better at it. Definitely better at it, Dina. Definitely.
And then Kelly says, my 28, 26, and my 4-year-old still pick on each other. I still have to tell them to knock it off during the holidays.
You know, Harry and Jacob were here, and they were getting ready to leave to go to Harry's house to spend the night. And they were like at each other. I was like, seriously? And Jacob looks at me, he goes, Mom, it's not a big deal. Just picking at each other. I'm like, yeah, I know, and I want you to like each other. He's like, we do like each other. We're picking at each other. So I think that it changes as they get older, but definitely you have to sort of create that space of love, that loving atmosphere. And I have to tell you, you know, of course, my adult sons, they always got along when they needed to get along, but they were not always friends, and now they're friends, and they're almost 22 and almost 20. So it's taken, there was some time between probably, those teenage years where there was a lot of like friction. But, you know, definitely as they've both sort of gone into that space of like true adulthood, it's gotten a lot better. They don't get along with their sister right now, but it's gotten a lot better in general. And so I can truly say that it comes from cultivating that, though. You have to cultivate that. You have to sort of be in that space. With that, I will also say, when you are in a situation where you've got several children around and you are sort of maybe in co-op situation, and you feel like you need to call a child out, you have to make sure you have a good relationship with that child's mother first. And second, you still have to make sure you make the connection. So once you make the connection, because, you know, we have a large co-op. We have 40 kids in our co-op and 17 families. We're growing. So if you're in the San Diego area, drop me a note and we'll see if we can get you on the wait list. But we have this growing co-op, and there are definitely times when you've got a group of children, you have to have a pulse on every child. So I would say, if you're going to be teaching in a co-op setting, get to know each child that's going to be in your class first, because it's super helpful. Or at least be open on that first class day to anything that can be happening, and be very, you know, extremely present, so that you can sort of catch a beat on all the personalities that are there, all the temperaments that are there. That's super helpful. Temperament is huge. It's huge. The temperament of yourself and the temperament of the child. So knowing that sort of then will really help you when it comes to whether or not you need to call somebody out. But be assured that it is okay. It's also okay to say, sweetheart, mommy's ears are tired. Can you just give me, I'm just going to set the timer for 5 minutes. I've totally done that. And you're not shutting them down. But if they have been talking ad nauseum for hours, like since they opened their eyes, then it is okay to get a break. And what I say generally is, hey, how about we listen to a Sparkle story? We had a situation just a few weeks ago where Soraya had not stopped, and we were in the car, and then in the car you kind of can't get away from it. And I didn't have the app on the app doesn't work great on my phone. I need to figure that out. But so I'm driving, and I could just see Sam was like, oh, she needs to stop talking. Oh my gosh, she needs to stop talking. And so I said, Soraya, we're going to be quiet until you can see the ocean again. And so we were on the space where we're like a half a mile or so from the water. So she could, because the way our house sits, you have to go up a hill, and then the top of the hill is up the street from us, and then you come down, and then you can see the water. So you could see in the back of the car, she was like waiting, looking out the window, because she wanted to talk. That's all she wanted to do was talk. So Eric has this saying, the empty can rattles the most. I don't know where that came from.
I think I heard it from a Metallica song.
Oh, well, it's possible. Metallica song. Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that.
That was a long time ago.
But I do think that we sort of tease. You want to keep it in a teasing place. You want to make sure you're not shaming. You want to make sure that you're connecting. Connecting is always important. And you want to be okay with the times that you have to say, okay, we got to be done with this. I can't remember if I told this story the other day. We went to the museum, the Natural History Museum, a few weeks ago, and we've sort of had a video about how the museum can be the killer of all good days. But Eric did it. It was your video about the museum, I think. or we did one together about the
Yeah.
museum, especially the Children's Museum. That's a bad place. I think that's what hell is like. It's like the Children's Museum over and over and over again. But we were at the Natural History Museum, so we had a great time, a great day in the Natural History Museum. And, you know, of course, you have to walk next to the store to get out. And I actually had something I wanted to buy in that store. And so I had already prepped them and primed them. We're going to walk in here. I'm looking for a book about San Diego, you know, some natural history stuff. This is why we are here. Okay, Mom. And we walk in, and of course the can I starts. And I spent a lot of time, you know, reassuring, no, we're not doing that. We are getting this great book. And Soraya's like, oh, whatever. Sam was like, great, a book. So, you know, the can-Is are still coming. And, you know, I'm very gracious, very, you know, get down on her level. And then, you know, I'm checking out, and she sees I'm checking out and only purchasing that. And then I get the, it's not fair. And I love, like, usually what I say is, the fair is a place where you eat cotton candy and ride rides. Life is not fair. Like, we're buying this. I'm sorry that you don't think it's fair today. Next time, bring your own dollars. She knew where we were going, so it wasn't like she couldn't bring her own money. And so it started there. And we had probably a quarter of a mile walk to the car. And it went all the way to the car, all the way. And there were lots of tears, but she was walking. So she's 7 and 7 months. And so she was walking. If she hadn't been walking, she had like fallen down and just decided to be done and had a tantrum on the ground. I don't think it would have gone much different because I would have kept walking. I always sort of, when I need to do that I know that they're okay, because I knew that she would have gotten up and followed me. So I would have continued to walk. But there was it's not fair. Her new one is, I'm so mad at you. Like, she'll get the I'm so mad part out, and then who she's mad at it sort of comes in there. But the whole way to the car, I just assured, I'm sorry that you're frustrated at that. And there was a point where I said, I'm done talking about this. We're walking to the car. And so I was done. I was done talking about it. She was continuing and continuing to build herself up. We get to the car, and she's, still really angry. And I open the car up, and I set my package in the car. I walked over to her. I took her hands, worked on her pressure points, and said, we're done with this. I'm not talking about this anymore. We're not having a tantrum today. We are done. Got it? Yeah. It's not fair. I don't care if it's not fair. We're getting in the car. We've got to go to the grocery store. Let's go. So then when we're in the car, I realized she has not eaten most of her lunch. So before we get to the grocery store, because that's another place where things are going to fall apart, I'm handing her the fruit bar. I'm handing her the Lyra bar. I'm making sure that she's eating, because so often hangriness kills holding the space. Your hangriness and theirs. So, that was probably the last tantrum. She used to tantrum 3 or 4 times a week. And we are down to about once a week, right? About once a week. Once a week. And she'll turn into this howling dog. So we had to say there's no dogs here. We're not allowed to have pets in this house. No dogs here.
Deanna asked why bad. I think she's referring to the Children's Museum.
Oh my gosh.
And Becky Anthony.
Go watch that video. The Children's Museum, I'm telling you, that's what it's like in hell.
Becky Antonucci says, agree, hell will indeed be the Children's Museum.
Yes, it is and it's generally because I think people that create, and this is this blanket statement, so I will absolutely admit, blanket statement here. It's probably not the truth for all museums, but all of the ones that I have seen in 2 different states have been this way. In Utah and here in California, in San Diego especially. They are the creator of bad days. And so when you decide to go, you have to take radical responsibility for yourself and be like, yeah, that was something I wanted to do. And then just be done with it.
Well, I mentioned the one here that's designed by modern artists. And
not by parents. And
not
by anybody who has children.
The creepy exhibit with the disembodied voices, depending on where you moved on the thing, and it was not good. Yeah,
especially children. I think children that have sensory stuff going on, don't take them there. You want to really think about where are you taking your children, especially if they have sensory things going on. Because a child that is sensory seeking is going to spend whatever time you've got at the museum, like, consuming sensory stuff, and then you have to deal with that child when you leave the museum. You have to be able to pull them back. And sort of we were laughing because that museum, the last time Eric took them to co-op that day, that she had a tantrum all the way home from Encinitas, and we live 45 minutes from Encinitas the whole way home. She had a tantrum.
Oh, that museum had...
That was a different one.
It was very chaotic, toys everywhere, and it was like Lord of the Flies. People started dancing on tables.
Oh, man.
It was bad.
So yeah, you want to be careful. You want to, when you go to places like that, if you have children that have sensory needs, if they are sensory avoiding, it's going to be overload, and they're going to gloss over and tantrum. If they are sensory seeking, they're going to spend the time there at the museum seeking sensory stuff, and then you're going to have to deal with it later, because then when we take the sensory away, then they're going to tantrum. So you want to really be careful. I just think that even neurotypical children shouldn't go to those places. Have a reason for going to the museum when you go. And again, if you are listening and there's like an amazing children's museum that you know of, please tell us the city that's in, because I'd like to go visit it and see if it's really amazing. Most museums are not created by parents. They're created by people who want to make money, and so they have exhibits that they think children will like, and so I get that part. The part that they're not thinking about is children that have, sensory things going on. I do like the Natural History Museum. It's chill. It's chill. Dinosaurs are chill. It's very calming. So, anything else over there? I think we're finished.
Yeah, Becky says also parents that have sensory stuff going on should not go.
Oh, yes. If you're a parent that has sensory stuff going on, don't go. If you are a parent that is like, you have not had, and I don't know how this turned into a museum conversation, but if you have not had a good night's sleep, do not put yourself in that situation. Do not put yourself and your children in a situation where you're going to fly off the handle really easily, or you're not going to be able to be centered. Just don't do it. It is the, like I said, the killer of good days, or the creator of bad days. Don't do it. It's too much. So I think that's it. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Join us Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. We're going to talk about thinking, feeling, willing. And I know that my friends on Instagram, it's not WTF, I promise. It's really for my Instagram friends who can't see it the other way. There. Now you can. Thinking, feeling, willing. So I hope you guys have a great week. See you on Wednesday morning, same time, same place. And we will see you later. Bye.